Are you wanting to create a highly prosperous photography business doing what you love? Or maybe you have a great business already and want to up your game? Then you're in the right place. Master craftsman photographer Lucy Dumas and her guests are here to support you on your journey. Now here's your hostess and tour guide, Lucy.
Creativity is seeing what others see and thinking what no one else has ever thought. And you may have heard of the person that said this. It's Albert Einstein. So welcome again to The Profitable Photographer. I'm super excited to get to know a new friend, Kristin Sweeting. I'll tell you all about her in just a sec. I want to remind you that if you're not watching this on YouTube, you can see her cute face and her pretty blonde hair and all the fun stuff in her background and a couple of my loan collection prints on my wall.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you for subscribing, everybody. And I made an offer. If you would like to write me a letter, as if it's a year from now, with all of the things you would like to see happen, feel free to do that. Send it to Lucy at lucydumas.com, Lucy with an I. And if you want me to set up a 20-minute call just to chat about that, I would love to do that. Okay, here we go. So the lovely Kristin Sweeting is an international wedding photographer, educator, host, and she has a podcast too that I'm going to be on. It's called The Dangerous Creatives Podcast. She's been photographing weddings and celebrations for 11 years, and her work has taken you to the work has taken her to 20 different countries. Yikes. I'm going to ask you more about that.
Yeah.
She had work featured in top wedding magazines and blogs, was voted one of the top wedding photographers in the South by Southern Weddings magazine, and gives back to photographers and creatives who want to grow their business through retreats. Oh, I love those. Workshops, speaking, and coaching. And so welcome, Kristin. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. So where are you exactly?
I'm in a small town outside of Nashville, Tennessee called Franklin.
Ah.
So we've been here for a little while. Have you ever been to Nashville?
Yes, I've been, I think 3 times for conventions, 2 or 3 times. I missed this year. Are you a PPA member?
No, Imaging was here, right? Was Imaging here? But yes. I missed it. But I did one time. I went one time and I led one of Kodak's photo walks, and it was so fun. So I was sad I missed it this year.
Yeah. Well, and you were right there, but you still, if you're not like next door to this convention center, then it's a lot of effort to get things together and spend a week learning.
I know. I think we were out of town. Otherwise, I would have been there with bells on. It's so cool to see other people.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd love a quick little like, where did you come from that gave you a passion for wedding photography? I'm kind of tongue-tied. See, there it is again. Kind of tongue-tied this morning, but you guys can handle it. I know. Anyway, how did you get to be you and know what you know, both photography, inspiration, and being able to help others grow their business?
Yeah, I'll try to make that really brief. I mean, I think I never knew that I wanted to be a photographer. I just knew I loved art and music. And I think my first business was, as a kid, I started baking cookies to raise money for our church. And I totally sold these cookies everywhere. And I think that was the first, I was very entrepreneurial as a kid. And so that was kind of the first spark. But I didn't find photography till after college. I majored in music. I thought I was going to be a music teacher. I knew I loved education and I loved kids. And photography kind of found me after college, and just haven't looked back since then.
Yeah. So I remember my first little gig selling something I created. I was probably 7 or 8, and I had an allowance, and it didn't cover a lot. Maybe a popsicle and one candy at the little neighborhood store, and I wanted more. So I walked around the block. I was not allowed to cross the street, but I could walk around the block. I picked flowers, not realizing my neighbors had planted those. I made little bouquets, and I walked back around the block and sold them.
Oh my gosh.
And the last one, I remembered when I got home, the look in the woman's eye that gave me, I don't know if it was a nickel or a dime, because back then nickels and dimes went a lot farther than they do now. And there was a look in her eye that later I realized she knew these were her flowers, but she was so tickled by this little early entrepreneur. So I love your story. I can just see you making those cookies and being like the head top amazing salesperson at your church. So yeah, cool.
My son now is very entrepreneurial too. He'll try to sell back things that we own to us, or like big paintings. And so it's fun to see that passed along.
Yeah. So you got to tell him you can do that, but you have to change it to sell it back. Like me making the bouquets, I put my own artistry into it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to improve it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that came to mind when I looked at your bio is the fact that you have done weddings and other work in 20 countries. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So in college, I studied abroad in Greece, and it was one of the more life-changing experiences where I just was like, why don't we adventure and learn about other cultures and do things more often? So I think I've always kind of been trying to get back to study abroad. Actually, the retreats that we run now, we call them study abroad for adults, because we just think adults need to have options to study abroad now if you missed it in college. But so yeah, I've always wanted to do more travel work. So some of that was photos for nonprofits, some of it was weddings, and some of it is these retreats that we host around the world. So it's been cool. It's a combination of opportunities finding me and also a lot of pitching, which I love teaching to photographers that, like, if you know what you want, you can go out and pitch it to someone, and the worst they can say is no, but sometimes they say yes, and then you have a really great story and great adventure.
Just like that. So how do you find weddings internationally?
Yeah, that one was a little trickier. I know you're into manifestation and vision boards and things too, and I also think that when you kind of are open to a lot of what life has for you and open to new experiences, open to meeting new people, sometimes things just align and they happen. So I'll just tell you how the different ones happened, because they're all different.
Okay.
One was a friend of mine that I went to college with. She studied abroad. This was the very first destination wedding I did. She studied abroad and she met a French man and fell in love. And they were going to have this big French destination wedding. And this was very early days of my photography business. And she was just like, I did photos for her for something else, or engagement photos for them. She was like, I wish we could have you come do our wedding in France. And I was like, you can, you can.
I like
and
that.
I was like, let's talk. Yeah, exactly. I was like, please, let's at least talk about it.
Yes,
And so, yeah, so it ended up being, they had like 2 weeks where they planned all this travel for all their friends and family. They brought me along. I did the wedding, and then I documented their whole family traveling for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it was kind of scrappy at that point. I think it probably just covered my expenses, but I had this like unbelievable story. I met all these new friends. I stayed in their friend's apartment in Paris, and so sometimes you kind of have to like get a little scrappy when there's something that you really want to
Right.
experience.
Right. Hey, a week in someone's apartment in Paris for free is
I
not a
know.
bad thing.
I know.
You know, it can easily cost $6,000-7,000 to have a trip to Paris, and
I
you
know.
got to do that for fun. And also then you got the bragging rights because, you know, to say, I'm an international photographer and have some pictures of Paris, that's a real branding magnet thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the words right, but you know what I mean. It doesn't
Yeah. Well,
stink
it's
when
hard.
you're promoting your business.
It's much easier to get more destination weddings once you've done a few. Like those
Yeah.
first few are hard because people really want to see that in your portfolio. So yeah, after that one, then some of their friends hired me, and one was just like I met a girl at a bar in New York City, and she was like, "My
Mhm.
photographer just canceled on me. We're having a wedding in Italy." And I was
Mm.
like, "Hey." So I mean, some of it is just it was total happenstance and just
Mhm.
being like offering up your name in a situation where someone needed it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I have a new word now, happen chance. I
Yeah,
think that's a
happen chance.
valid word that ought to be in the dictionary. Happen chance. So
Combine a couple words, you know?
one of the things I found, I have friends who promote themselves as international photographers available, you know, to travel. And they seem to have a real challenge charging enough that taking, even like I did a wedding in Hawaii, and which is super fun. I'm all about that. And I charged a good chunk of change for the fact that I was going to be away from my business, even if I didn't stay longer and have some Hawaii fun for at least 4 days. You've got travel, really five, travel, travel on either end, resting up, do the wedding, rest up again, and then travel. So, how do you figure that out? How do you price yourself so it's really worth it to leave your studio and not be able to do work for all that
Yeah,
time?
totally. Totally. I definitely think different stages, I had different priorities too. Like I have a son who's young now. And so, my travel fee is much higher than maybe it was in my 20s. So in my 20s, when I was really wanting to travel a ton, if I could get a few different projects in a different city at the same time, sometimes I'd have them split the travel bill, get a little creative. But a lot of times I had a separate price sheet for different cities. So I had a destination price sheet that included some travel in that. And then I had my more local price sheet. And I think that that's a way that you can do it.
Mhm.
It's actually way harder after COVID because travel rates are all over the place.
Mhm.
So I don't do it that way anymore. But before COVID, I would have like kind of a set travel fee. And it was just like it's $1,500 or whatever was my travel
Right.
fee. And that worked fairly well, but it doesn't anymore. It's way more expensive to travel now.
Mm.
And you have to be a lot more careful and plan for a lot more contingencies.
So how do you do it now?
I do a lot less travel weddings.
Okay, but
I do my
let's say
travel
somebody,
retreats. Yeah.
oh, sorry. Let's say
Yeah.
somebody really wants to do this. What do you recommend, or what would you do now if someone
Yeah.
contacted you and said, I'm doing a wedding in Mexico or wherever, Japan. I
Yeah.
have a friend in Japan today. So uh,
Yeah.
what do you recommend? How do you recommend for people who are not starting and seeing it as a really fun way to get to travel, but as a business decision? Do you have some thoughts on what you would be doing now if this was your bread and butter?
Totally, totally. When I'm traveling in the States, because I still do that quite a bit, I'll have the couple book my hotel within their room block.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say like, hey, can you book me and my second shooter 2 rooms for 2 or 3 nights? And then I'll kind of a la carte the travel, like reimburse the flights or the mileage and add in a little bit for that buffer time too. So
Okay.
yeah, I think it works well that way. The adding you onto their room block seems like a really easy thing for most people to do, and then just building in the travel expense. And I
Mhm.
try to get them a quote early on in the process, but just say like this might change if the like flights change or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm. The little bit of this kind of out of state work that I've done, I also require that they book my top package as
Hmm.
well as a fee for my time for traveling. Because when you think about it, especially now when we can get stuck somewhere
Yeah.
forever, we have to leave earlier than we need. And so, yeah, taking that all into consideration. But when I was new uh, and doing weddings and loved to travel, I like nobody was doing international. There wasn't internet. And I would have loved to go out of state or out of the country and be somewhere new and then stay extra time on my dime. So it,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it can be tricky. Would you agree with that? To to be profitable if you're not really paying attention.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's really easy to lose track of numbers. I think I mean, travel in general, weddings in general. I shoot a lot of film, and I find a lot of film photographers are losing money from their wedding packages. So, yeah, knowing your numbers is so important, and not that you can't ever take a little bit of a hit if you're like, this is a marketing decision. Just make sure you're making a very conscious decision
Yeah,
and not making that all the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I just had like a post-traumatic stress flashback um, when you said film, because even when I traveled for fun, brought my big camera and my Hasselblad
Yeah.
and my 35 millimeter and maybe 30 rolls of film. And or when I went to Europe, the last time I carried film, you go through lots of different airports and things, and they want to tell you, no, it doesn't harm the film. And almost everywhere except England, I was able to say, I'm a professional. And if I did this one time, would not be a problem. But if this is going through over and over, and I don't remember which roll of film has only been through the x-rays one or two times, then I have to throw it out. And
Yeah.
the stress of that, of first of all carrying this much, if you're watching video, you know what I mean, Kristen, big blocks
You
of
have like
film.
a
Yeah,
Ziploc bag
big
full of
blocks.
rolls of film.
Yes. And then going really early so that when you get to the, what do we call it, security, handing it to them and praying that they're not like, no, you can run it through, and arguments ensue, is patiently saying, I
Yeah.
understand, but I have a legal right to have this hand search. So, I'll probably
Oh,
have a nightmare about it tonight.
I know. And every photographer gets anxiety dreams too. But yeah, my
Yes.
mama bear does not come out more than like at the security at the airport. Like when I was pregnant with my son, I did a destination wedding in Paris, and it was like not a for a friend one. This was like I was paid a lot of money for it. I
Yeah.
needed to be very careful with these images. And I had like I had all this medication because I had a high risk pregnancy. So I have like, can you hand check my film? Can you hand check my medication? I don't want to go through the x-ray. I was like the biggest pain pain in the butt.
Yeah. So how did you handle the screeners, and like, do you have a strategy that you can recommend for travel with all that stuff? And also, you got all your cameras
Yeah.
and such, and do not check your cameras, right?
Right. Yeah.
Carrie? So
Yeah.
do you have thoughts about how you approach the people at security?
I always try to learn how to say whatever it is in the language, try to say like, can you please hand check my film? So I always either have something printed out in that language or I've learned how to say it. Yeah, I go early. I'm really nice. I have it all in a Ziploc bag with all the wrappers off so that they're not like trying to take wrappers off. I try to like walk through with the bag of film. One time I had them like open it and there was like rolls of film on the ground and I'm just like, you are dropping my film. What are you doing? So I just try to like be as close to it as possible. And just like, oh man, Lucy, I got so mad that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing? This
Yeah.
is like
The
my
one,
livelihood.
yeah. So the one where it just absolutely made no sense is I was flying, let's just say from Italy home, but I had to change planes in England.
Mhm.
And I didn't, I got off the plane and then was just going to get right back on another plane. So I didn't go out into the kiosk and come back. But you still had to go through a new security, even though you just got on a plane and you just gone through security. And they
Yeah.
would absolutely not allow me to have it hand inspected. So
Yeah.
what I did, luckily I had one of those bags. I'm not remembering what they're called, but those safe,
The lead bags.
the lead bags. And so I could only fit like 8 rolls at a time. So I was like, okay, so when you run it through, we're going to put it in this. And there were 30 rolls of film. And they were so frustrated with me.
Yeah.
Oh, why don't you
Just
just,
hand
I'm
check
like,
it.
I understand. I do that a lot. I hear what you're saying. I am a professional. I cannot afford the risk of damaged film. But I understand. Like I said, this is my profession. And just as calmly that, but yeah, that. So there's
It's
some
stressful.
challenges that make the fun adventure of traveling for work and photographing. If we're still in film, I mean, there's still challenges, but yeah. So thanks for the nightmares. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is I love that. Now and I especially love the idea of doing some retreats. So where's the coolest place? I mean, I'm sure you think they're all cool or you wouldn't have picked it, but
Yeah.
where's the coolest place that you've taken a group on a retreat?
Probably Iceland. I did one of the first ones at Iceland. Yeah, have you been to Iceland before?
No, I've seen lots of pictures.
So pretty. And we just did one in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, which is also a beautiful city.
Some friends of mine just went, and both photographers, and the pictures that they have posted on Facebook are gobsmacking. I love that word.
Yeah. It's probably not too hard for you to get there from San Diego too. I feel like I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of people from California that were there. I'm like, there must be a good flight.
Yeah. Well, it's close to the same time zone too. So to be able to be international and not have, a 10-hour time difference and all that jet lag.
Yeah, exactly.
Is nice. So are these retreats mostly photographic or what are you focusing on the retreats?
We kind of do a blend of business and tourism. I'm like, let's have some experiences that incorporate personal growth, getting outside your comfort zone while we're having conversations about running a business and marketing. So I've had some that were more photo centric or it was all photographers. Now they're usually open to a wide range of creatives, and that ends up being fun too. I still take pictures of everybody, but we kind of err more on the business side of things, which is fun. And then the activities kind of like bring you out of your comfort zone, help you get to know people that are there in that country. I always try to have activities that are led by locals and hire local photographers and things like that too, so that it's really like kind of immersive.
Sorry, that was a weird noise I just made. Ooh, wow, that sounds great.
Yeah, no, they're fun. They're really fun.
So I have a hot tip for you, a
Yeah.
wonderful place to go. And maybe you have already done this, but the Cotswolds in England. Have you
Yeah.
been?
I haven't, but it looks stunning.
It's got the thatched roof cottages. It's just really that like merry old quaint England. And one of my friends did a travel trip. I think there were about 15 of us. And we did it
So
in
cool.
May, so everything was blooming. And there are the most incredible gardens. Like gardening for men is a sport in England. So,
Yes.
and these sweet little couples with their little hats that hipsters wear now, walking around
Like
with their canes in
wide
these
brimmed.
beautiful gardens. And Stonehenge is there. If you ever go, there is a way to book a group at sunset where you can go in among the stones, which
Cool.
the average tourist cannot do. Our bus driver, had not been in the stones in 20 years. So, and there's Bath. It's just an incredible place. And the food is not as bad anymore in England as they like to say. So you get yourself to Oxford and then you take a coach. So
That sounds amazing.
if you're thinking about a great trip, and what's nice too is they all speak English. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Makes it
that's
a little
cool.
less complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like where The Holiday was filmed, right? In that area. Christmas movie.
I don't remember where that was filmed, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's a great, especially for people who love flowers and old buildings and things like that. It's anyway, I highly recommend it. And
That's
for my
awesome.
listeners, if you're like, I want to go on a photography fun trip with some friends, I recommend that as well. The way my friend picked it is as her plane was flying, it was flying right over the Cotswolds, and she looked down and was like, where is that? And so she looked it up and like, we're going there next time. So
That's amazing.
yeah. Okay. So I know something that you are really big on, especially for creatives, is having multiple streams of revenue. So can you talk about, first of all, what is that? What does that mean?
Yeah. I am really passionate about this. I think are you into the Enneagram? Like, do you know your Enneagram type?
I don't remember it. I have taken it, and yes, so I don't know what I am, but yes, I know.
I don't really know what I am either, because I keep changing it. But my multiple stream of revenue thing is very 6 on the Enneagram, which like wants to always have a backup plan and to always feel safe. And so the multiple streams of revenue happened a couple different reasons, where, so many photographers have had this moment kind of about now, February, right? Where it's booking season and you're just freaking out that there's not enough on the books. What happens if I can't pay my bills this year? It's really easy to get into this like head spiral. And I did that for so many years of my business, until I started building these other ways to make money into my business, so that I wasn't putting so much pressure on every single inquiry. Because, when there's pressure on anything, it's harder for it to materialize. Just like when you're like dating someone and you're like, this has to be the person that I'm like with forever. Like no one likes that pressure.
Yeah. There's a term I heard a while ago called commission breath, that when you're working on commission and you're focused on that, people can feel it, and it's off-putting. It isn't attractive. So yes.
You're like, you want this a little bit too much.
Yeah. And what you described in my, 40 years in my career, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's January. This is the year I'm going to starve to death. I just know it. And then I would have to talk myself down and remind myself, first of all, if you didn't get any work, you'll figure something out. You'll handle it. But it also could kind of motivate me to get off my tushy and
Yeah.
and work. But I love the multiple stream idea. So describe what that would be for a photographer,
Yeah.
and give us
Yeah.
some ideas.
I'll give you some of the ones that I've done over the years and some ideas that I see photographers doing that I think it can be so helpful. Because even if you're just like, I have money coming in from this other thing too, that's also tied in with my photography business. We're not like going off and starting some other totally random side hustle. Like, it's nice when they all support each other. Then when there's an inquiry that's not the right fit, you don't have, like you said, that commission breath. So some examples are presets, are education offerings. I've even done things. I had a film scanner for a while, and I rented out my film scanner to other photographers. I made a, when I was single parenting, I had my house kind of set up like a studio, and me and my son would clear out and rent it out to other photographers for to do their own photo shoots in. So I was like, I leveraged my assets. I leveraged my education. I did other types of photography. And now in our coaching program, we kind of encourage people to have 4 pillars of creative business revenue. And the 4 pillars are meat and potatoes, which I say, especially if you're someone who like security is really important to you, or you're the breadwinner of your family, or you're the only person supporting yourself, having a retainer client or someone that's signed on for a bigger project can be really helpful. So even when I was shooting weddings really consistently, I had a branding retainer client that was paying me a certain amount every month to do a certain amount of branding photos for them in a year. And especially when I was, again, single parenting, breadwinner, just knowing that like bit of revenue was promised each month really took a lot of pressure off of me and let me be creative in some different ways.
Yes. So I want to pause you one sec there. Yeah. So I had a client for 8 years. I think I've mentioned it now and then. The golfer Phil Mickelson, his wife loved photography, and at least twice a year I did major shoots for them, which was awesome because we would do it for Christmas cards and things. So, I had work and such with that. The downside was it made me a little bit lazy in marketing because I always knew I had this nice chunk of change. So just that little cautionary tale is pretend you don't have that in terms of the other parts of your business or the main business, whatever it would be. Does that make sense? Do you have thoughts on that?
Totally. Yeah, I feel like I'm like that. It's got to be something to do with personality too. I'm like, if I don't feel, for me, if I don't feel safe, my other marketing goes out the window too. Cause I'm like, now I just am spiraling. So that's probably, part of the anxiety that I have as a, whatever Enneagram type I am. But yeah, I could see that being the case too. I just tend to go the other way, I think.
Yeah, because my superpower is sales. If I have a steady stream of clients, I'm rich, but the marketing part is something that's not natural for me. So it was so easy to be like, okay, well, I'm doing fine. I've got that going on. And yeah. So, okay. So number 1 is meat and potatoes, which is having, like right now I have a vacation rental that used to be my studio when I did a lot more babies. So that's my meat and potatoes. I'm thinking, right, that I get whatever, it rents out pretty well. And by the way, if anybody's coming to San Diego, I've got this great little vacation rental, and we're right near the zoo, the park, downtown, beaches, but in a cute neighborhood. Anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
yeah, it's a little easier, and it's not something you're having to actively market so much, which it kind of makes it for people that get overwhelmed by marketing. And then the second one is main stars, which I would say like that's the thing that you want to be known for, or if you're niching in something, like for my business, it was wedding photography. So my main star was wedding photography. That was all I put on Instagram. That was all that was on my website. Wanted to be known as, film wedding photographer. So that, that's the thing that you're like mainly showing up to market is the main star.
Okay. So I'm thinking, you give me lots of good thoughts. So one of my coaching clients is building a pet photography business, working for people with their pets. As a sideline, she wants to grow some commercial income as well. Yeah. So it sounds like the main star, what she focuses on the most is growing and sustaining that steady traffic of individuals. And then a little side money would be from what she can do either commercially with the images she takes or some things like photographing somebody's dog food or something. Am I on track with that?
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure. Because I think, some of it, when you're trying to market too many things on the same platform or in the same way, I think people can start to get confused. And so I'm a fan of having, one thing that you market this way. And then my commercial stuff was all word of mouth. It was all kind of behind the scenes. Right. It was not something I had to actively market. It kind of like existed over here. So, yeah.
So totally. When I was all in on weddings, I did not put children, passports, all these other potential things I can do. But occasionally someone would say, do you do family portraits or children or some other things? And like, I don't love doing headshots. So usually I sent that to somebody else. But so yes. I think we're on the same page with that. Like brand, tell the world what you do. That's your main star moneymaker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the third pillar is enhancers. And that's kind of the add-on to that main service, which, as a portrait photographer, that would be your print packages and the framed prints and the albums and the family memberships and, kind of building on to that package for that one person. For wedding photography, rehearsal dinner coverage, boudoir photography, albums, welcome parties, prints. I mean, there's so many things to add on to that. And again, that's like stuff you're not having to super actively market because you're making those sales with your existing clients.
Right. Okay. So when I did weddings, I started to be frustrated when I included engagement sessions for everybody. And then they would only get 1 8x10 that they put in their album. So I started charging a retainer. So I'd say engagement session is complimentary with the package, but I do collect a minimum purchase on that. And so I would bring in an extra $1,000, $2,000 on the engagement sessions. And then now with portraits, a lot of people are including frames in their packages. I always separate that out because it's a different pocket that the money comes out of later to add on a frame. And I would say when I, super active doing families, 20% of my income came from selling frames. And I didn't have to do anything but order it and take the little gun, will actually pay my assistant to assemble it and then deliver it. So are those two things I mentioned what you can enhancers?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Like what's going to make this product or service better? Providing the frame and the custom framing is an enhancement to what they're already receiving. And so you're making their life better and they're also increasing the revenue that's coming into your business.
And they need a frame from somewhere.
Yeah.
So what I find is, I'm not sure what the term is, but I think this is in the enhancer is that you kind of have step-by-step money investment. So like I
Mhm.
start in portraits with the initial session fee and a minimum purchase, and that money gets out of their pocket into mine. And then I sell the photographs, and I don't do the frames because I think the sale will be smaller. Because if they are comfortable spending $3,000, they'll do it whether there's a frame or not. And then the
Mhm.
next enhancement is then the opportunity to sell them a frame. Am I on track with that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thinking about the different parts of the purchasing decisions, when each thing kind of needs to be decided on. And I think too many people try to force their clients to make all the decisions up front, and ends up doing kind of a disservice to both of
Yes.
you.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about okay, it's leaving my brain. It was something I accidentally started doing, but if I remember, I'll be like, oh, I remembered that thing. Okay.
Yeah,
What
totally, totally.
is number 4, my dear?
Number 4 is PJ profits. And this is a little bit more on the passive income side of things. Although I always say, like, nothing's really passive. You have to put effort into anything you do. But, like, this would be your presets or your iPhone photography course, or your print shop, if it's automated, would be more of a PJ profit. Your gallery, your online gallery of like fine art prints, or if you got into education and did a PDF about something or a course about something, a lot of those things are more passive or more leveraged. And I feel like those tend to be, my only warning is, those tend to be the shiny objects for people. And they're like, ooh, let's build all these PJ profits. And I think the other 3 are way more important to build first, because they can bring in more revenue faster. And this kind of ends up being a slower build / icing on top. And I mean, I would throw my, like, when I was renting out my film scanner or my studio, sometimes that was a little bit more on the PJ profit front too.
But what if you don't wear PJs?
Your nudie profits.
Yeah, that would, sorry, TMA for me, but yes, but I like to dress where it feels like I'm in PJs all the time. So,
Yeah, totally.
good. So, anything like that was such good stuff. Anything else on the multiple streams of income?
Yeah, yeah. So I've seen it happen with a lot of people we work with. Is I think you get excited about all these multiple streams of income, and you try to, I've done this too, you try to bite off everything at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think the way to really make that effective is to focus on one thing, build it. And once it is kind of, I think everything we do at some point hits a little bit of a tipping point. Like at the beginning of your photography business, we're just marketing until we have enough of a client list that there's this referral momentum coming in. And so I think if you can wait until you get to that point where there's referral momentum coming in, you can take the gas off the marketing a little bit to go and build another revenue stream, or your podcast, or your education offering, or your presets, and then come back and kind of like cycle the things through. I think people tend to get overwhelmed / I tend to get overwhelmed when I'm like, I'm going to build 10 revenue streams all at the same time. And then just like everything falls flat. So that's my encouragement, is don't try to build them all at the same time. Pick one at a time to focus on. And I mean, stories of how it helped me out, COVID, when most of the big weddings were canceled, I had other streams of revenue, didn't have to take out unemployment. I had these other things going that helped us out. I broke my hand right before I had to do a photo shoot, like my shooting hand.
Oh no.
And had a friend cover it, and it didn't totally destroy us financially for, because I had other things going on. So I think it helps. It's a way to help kind of like have some backup plans in place.
Right. Because we never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I had a giant tumor in my sinus.
Oh my gosh.
I had found it in 2010, I lost a lot of work time then, and then 2014, when it was a major brain surgery, of course, I had a lot of time, but because I had other things going, and also in this situation, I could plan ahead, so
Mhm.
then I worked really hard and I actually made more money in those 2 years and had more steady income. One of the
Did you
things
just book out? Like you booked out on
I,
the horizon?
so some of them I was a little more like, hey, we got to get this in. I've got to get this sale with you done because I'm going to be down for I don't know how long. And then I booked like with a couple of the surgeries, I booked them a month after, but I focused on
Mhm.
getting things going in a way that it's just like one of my coaching clients took a part-time job just to supplement as she's continuing to grow.
Mhm.
And I see her actually accomplishing more now that she has less time, because when she has the time, she focuses and gets her done.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I felt that. So my ex and I split up when my son was 2 years old,
Mm,
and I was running my photography business, but all of a sudden I went from, having someone co-parenting with me to basically every day except for one day had my son, who was like, at that age, it's a
yeah,
full-time job.
it
And
is.
so I had a couple hours when he was at, daycare for one day a week, where I could get stuff done. And then I had after he went to bed where I would get stuff done. That's when I started my podcast. That's when I recorded my online course. Cause I think I was like, I need to make sure we're in a better situation in a year than right now.
Mhm.
And I think when you get kind of backed into those walls and something really hard happens, when your time gets constricted, yeah, you can be a lot more, you have like a very clear vision, and it feels like I can push for this, short amount of time to get to where I'm going that will make the future easier on us.
Yeah. So we can welcome adversity
Mm-hmm.
and how it helps our business. Now, I'm going to suggest one other. I'm not sure where this would fall. It's probably in your 4 pillars. But if I could live my life over again, I would have found a way to buy. There were properties across the street
Mm-hmm.
that if I had figured out a way to have the wherewithal to buy those and rent them. Um, one of them was this beautiful, still is a beautiful home that I could have purchased for $200,000 that is probably worth well over $1.5 million. And I could easily be getting like $3,500 a month income. And then the other is I'm looking out my window and seeing 3 small houses that were part of a property. I live in a historic neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and those 3 sold for 200,000. And I knew about it before anyone else. But at the time, young woman just keeping things going and single, but I look back now, and one of the best things I did was my house is a 2-on-1. And so
Yeah.
I used it for rent early on. Then when I became a baby photographer, it was my studio. And then when I realized, oh, I'm doing outdoor portraits now, and if I need a studio, I moved it down to my garage. And so I've got that passive income. So I
Yeah.
early on, one of the photographers in San Diego that was really smart said, a lot of people make the most money in their photography by buying their studio rather than renting, and then later on making income if you don't want to use the studio. So think
Yeah.
real estate, but smart.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
don't buy right now when it's at the top.
Yeah,
Or do
exactly.
if you need to. Okay, so we're almost out of time. Was there, before I ask you my last 2 like closing questions, anything else with the multiple streams?
I mean, I'm right there with you with the real estate. The house that I bought was an hour outside of town. It was like a small town that no one noticed yet. And I bought it at a good time and turned it into a studio. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's smart to be thinking of of the things on the periphery too that might be a part of letting you be more creative or travel more or take less clients or whatever. I think what you said is exactly right.
Good.
Thinking long term.
Yeah. Because it's unbelievable how quickly my 40 years has passed. It seems like, and then when I think, oh, someone's been in business 10 years, oh, they're new. And then I remember, oh, wait, look what's going on with me, at 10 years. It's such a beautiful journey being a creative, because we get to, especially a creative that knows how to be profitable and serve our industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
What do you love more about? Most, not more, but most about being a creative entrepreneur?
I love the relationships that I have through the industry. My wedding clients end up being like lifelong friends sometimes, or I continue to document them as they get older. Some of them come back and end up starting their own creative business and join one of our coaching programs or come to a study abroad. So I think for me, that's the part that I really love, is getting to partner with people and go along their journey with them and see them in all these different facets of life, whether that's getting married or whether that's motherhood, or sometimes getting divorced and doing a boudoir session to like heal from that. There's just, it's cool to be part of people's journeys.
Yeah, I agree. I also love that freedom of deciding when I'm going to wake up in the morning and being able to travel when I want. And I've never been a very good Indian. I don't know if that's culturally appropriate, but I've been a better chief than a worker, better
like leader than follower.
Especially when I'm the boss of me. Sometimes I'm kind of a mean boss, but I do the best I can to give myself grace for not always being perfect. I don't know if anyone relates to that. But.
Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah, this was the first year where we did a remote month somewhere. We did it in January, and I was like, I've been running my business how long? And we just were like, let's maybe go somewhere warm in the winter. Yeah. And we just moved our office somewhere warm. I think there's just so many cool opportunities now when you run your own business to,
Oh, hey, Kristin, it's pretty warm in San Diego.
Yeah, we'll just go to San Diego.
And I got all 5 stars. It's this charming little 1-bedroom granny flat above my garage. So, hey,
that's amazing.
Ever thinking of that? It's anyway, I don't know why I'm into promoting that right now, but one time, someone I'd known for years as a photographer, and you know how you have photographer friends and then you have photographer friends?
Mm-hmm. I think I know what you mean.
It was in that we would be friends if it wasn't photography, like, a deeper heart connection. Mm-hmm. She now lives in the Netherlands. She married a Dutch man, and she booked my apartment for 6 weeks, not knowing it was mine.
Oh my gosh.
We were so excited. We had so much fun for those 6 weeks. And her husband is kind of not the most adventurous. So there was lots of times for her to come sit on my porch or for us to go to lunch and stuff. So yeah.
I love that.
It's that same making friends thing that I love about my photography career. I'm like you, and of course now coaching and podcasting, because now I got you as a new friend.
I know, so fun. We also have a garage apartment. If you ever want to come to Nashville, we'll swap.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so 2 questions. One, I know that you have a gift for our listeners. What is that, and how do we grab it?
Yes. It is some vision board templates. They're super easy to work through, and it includes kind of a masterclass on vision boarding too, but we have them divided up into months and based on your core values. So we kind of walk you through that. And they are at dangerschool.com/freebies. And I'll also send you the link. So if you want to put them in the show notes or anything, but yeah.
Great. And when Kristin was telling me that she has that gift earlier, I was like, oh, my, let's see, what's the date? my March 1st episode is all about manifesting, and I talk about vision boards. So perfect segue. All
So
right.
cool.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity to share either something that you'd be like, oh man, I wish I had shared this, or just like a wrap up, like your last thoughts for today. So what do you got?
I think that the thing that I wish every creative knew and felt is that you have so much to share, and your authenticity and being yourself is so needed in this industry. I think it's so easy to blend in and do exactly what other people are doing. And the more you can kind of be your weird self, do what comes naturally to you, stand out a little bit, I think that is just like a breath of fresh air in our industry. So I just really appreciate you having me on the podcast. I definitely feel like you are that too. You're a breath of fresh air. So I just really appreciate being here.
Thank you. I loved having this conversation and can't wait to be in the hot seat in about a month and have you. I don't like to say pick my brain. I like to say go in there and wander around and see what you find. So
I'm excited to host you.
yeah, thank you for letting me wander around your brain, and we've found some really good things. I know people are going to love this episode. So thanks for being on the show. And everybody stay tuned for my wrap up after I send Kristin off to the rest of her day. So bye, Kristin.
Bye. Thank you.
So I am back, but you didn't even know I went. That was such a great conversation. And I love covering some new topics and topics that have some new perspectives. So I know you're going to love it too. Before I do my wrap up, just reminding you that if you would like to chat about anything, just go to Lucy Dumas Coaching and send me a message, or you can email me, lucy@lucydumas.com. There are a couple of gifts at lucydumascoaching.com, Lucy with an I, like a breakdown of 7 strategies for marketing or thinking about your marketing. Anyway, good stuff in there. So so here's the wrap up. We talked about her background baking cookies and being an entrepreneur from a young age, selling something she created. And then I was really fascinated by how she's worked in 20 countries. And she talked about how some of those are workshops she's done, some commercial jobs. We talked about weddings and when you're going to travel, making sure that it isn't taking away from your business, but enhancing it. A lot of time, a lot of effort, travel through airports, carrying your cameras, all of that takes a lot of effort. Being a traveling photographer can enhance our credibility and be more impressive. So sometimes, even if we're not getting full time for dollar value, I think she pointed out, I think I'm saying it differently, but it can be worth it even if it's not financially as worth it as booking something locally. But if you're going to be a regular international photographer or travel to other states, you just want to remember how much time is away from your business and how much stress and so forth, and charge accordingly. So then we talked about multiple streams of income, and that having backup plans can give you a sense of peace, or having other steady income in whatever way would work for you can, save that, like the fears that happen certain times of year. For wedding photographers, it's often January. And she said there's 4 pillars. There's the meat and potatoes, like a retainer client or something that's just going to come in all the time. There's the main star, number 2. that's your moneymaker and it's what you're known as. And I love that she suggested we keep our focus and our marketing really solidly on that main star. Then enhancers, number 3, which is add-ons. Like for me, it was frames and albums. I always knew I was going to sell wall portraits when I do family portraits. But the frames and the books are kind of that bonus money in a way. And then she called it number 4, PJ profit. So things that like courses, or if you get your work in websites that are like art galleries and things that just provide some steady income while you're sleeping or watching Netflix in your PJs. And then her last thought was understanding that as a creative, you are unique. And the more you bring that out, I think she said your weird self, just being yourself and getting the world to experience what it is that you do, that you offer. She and I encourage you. So that's it for today. Stay tuned for all the other goodness. Thanks for subscribing to my YouTube channel and to the podcast platforms, wherever you like to listen. And that's it. Bye.
You have been listening to The Highly Profitable Photographer with Lucy Dumas. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate, subscribe, review, and share. To connect one-on-one and learn more about our coaching programs, just go to lucydumascoaching.com. Until next time, go have fun photographing and selling your work.